Good afternoon. I acknowledge that we're gathered here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6, and I also want to acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. I'm joined here today by our NDP critic for multiculturalism, Jasper Deal, as well as Dr. Bukola Salmi, the Associate Professor in the Faculty of Nursing at the University of Alberta, and Dr. Temitope Oriola, the Associate Professor in their Faculty of Arts Sociology Department. In June 2020, in the wake of anti-racist protests across the world and right here at home in Alberta, our party made a commitment to organizations, advocates, community leaders, Indigenous, BIPOC Albertans, and allies from varying backgrounds. We promised that we would host and participate in a series of conversations to work on solutions for combating racism in Alberta and creating positive systemic change in healthcare, education, public safety, community support, economic participation, and democratic participation. Over the course of 6 months, we consulted over 600 community members representing numerous organizations and associations, and I want to thank each and every Albertan who participated in those important discussions. During those conversations, we repeatedly heard from participants about the importance of collecting race-based data. Now, Albertans are seeing what is happening here and across the world, and they are demanding better for their leaders, as they should. And while we may want to look at what's happening in the United States as someone else's problem, telling ourselves that racist events in our problem are not the Alberta we know, well, the more uncomfortable truth is, it is. For so many Albertans, racism, whether subtle or overt, is part of their daily experience. There are many truths that have been articulated by Black people, Muslims, Indigenous people, and other people of color, and those truths bear repeating. Racism exists. It is systemic. And systemic racism is often caused by policies, practices, and procedures that may appear neutral on paper. But in practice, they disadvantage racialized groups and are often perpetuated by a failure to identify and monitor racial disparities so that real change can be mapped and implemented. So how do we accomplish real change? Well, we need to know where to start, where the gaps exist, where the system is failing racialized Albertans. For example, the pandemic has brought to the surface for many how its effects have disproportionately affected racialized groups. The Public Health Agency of Canada, for example, showed early in the pandemic that COVID-19 cases were 1.5 to 5 times higher among racialized populations than non-racialized populations. And First Nations peoples living on reserve also saw infection rates 69% higher than the general population. These statistics made it clear to all Albertans the existing health inequities that are strongly influenced by societal and economic factors like income, education, employment, and housing. Everyone deserves to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. And the COVID-19 pandemic showed that without a doubt, what people from racialized communities have long known to be true, that systemic racism is a persistent reality in Alberta, across Canada, and it prevents many from fully participating in society, and that's why we need to collect the data. So that's why I'm introducing Bill 204, the Anti-Racism Act, into the legislature today. This bill is designed to support and implement a key recommendation from the Alberta Anti-Racism Advisory Council's report issued last March. In that report, they called on the government of Alberta to mandate the collection of race-based data in all departments, as well as the analysis of this data to track and evaluate the progress being made and identify existing gaps between racialized and non-racialized communities in order to promote equitable access to public services and partnerships with government. Bill 204 will outline a requirement for all public bodies to collect race-based data and facilitate, through data standards and impact assessments, reporting on key outcomes and performance indicators on equity. And it will set clear data collection standards developed in consultation with racialized communities so that all levels of government and public service can truly benefit all Albertans. It's our duty as government to use every tool we have at our disposal to ensure we are representing all Albertans properly. And to not tap into this vital tool would be negligent. It would be a huge disservice to racialized groups. We have an obligation to work collectively towards making Alberta a place where everyone can be successful. And we need the information on hand to build that road to success. Currently, Alberta does not collect race-based data. And knowing how every single Albertan is affected by the world around them will help us shape better policy to build better lives for every single Albertan. Having race-based data will help governments, our healthcare system, every public body, perhaps even private companies looking to invest in our province, provide better outcomes for racialized Albertans. Having race-based data will help us better understand and identify geographical and demographic impacts on racialized communities and help find ways to address them. And overall, having race-based data will help us work to eliminate systemic racism and advance racial equity to improve our society, which will benefit all Albertans. I would now like to invite Dr. Bukola Salmi, followed by Dr. Tematope Oriola, to share their thoughts. Dr. Salmi.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. First, I'd like to acknowledge that I am located in Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous people, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others whose history, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. And I am very, very grateful for Indigenous people for the privilege I have to share this land. Canada is becoming more and more diverse, and so also is Alberta. Alberta has one of the fastest growing population of immigrants in Canada. It's important that health and social services is responsive to the needs of immigrants and racialized population in Canada. This is especially true, especially because racism and race are determinants of health according to the Public Health Agency of Canada. And here are a few knowledge that we have about racism and health. And with my examples, I'll focus specifically on Black populations in Canada, which I have conducted a lot of research with. Data from Ontario and Quebec indicates that Black children and youth in Canada experience poorer educational achievement than other children and youth. And this in turn translates to poorer economic outcomes. This is despite Statistics Canada data that indicates that Black children and youth have a higher educational aspiration and resilience compared to other similarly aged, racial, or ethnic background. So despite higher educational aspiration, Black children and youth experience poorer educational outcome. Data from Ontario indicate that Black youth are twice as likely to be stopped by police than arrested. They often have more conditions imposed on them on bail, and they are also less likely to be paroled when incarcerated. In Ontario, they are more likely to be charged and less likely to be cautioned than youth from other racial backgrounds. Data from Ontario and Quebec suggests that predominantly Black neighborhoods have a higher prevalence of COVID-19 infection. An analysis in Montreal of COVID-19 prevalence and influence of 24 social determinants of health indicates that the strongest positive correlation to COVID-19 infection is the percentage of population in a neighborhood that is Black. And the impact of being Black was stronger than categories of poverty, visible minority status, housing situation, or refugee status. In Toronto neighborhoods with a higher number of Black people have higher rates of COVID-19 infection. And this effect is more substantial than in communities with low levels of education, visible minority status, poor working conditions, and low income. Thus, what we are seeing with the COVID-19 infection is that race is seeming to be the strongest social determinant of health. You may also notice one thing of all the data that I have described to you, that all this data have been done outside of Alberta. We do not have data in Alberta to show these health disparities. In Alberta, all data on this is non-existent, as we do not collect race-based data. In the past, I have tried to analyze health services database to examine health outcomes based on race to help provide recommendations and support the development of policies to address health inequities. However, I haven't been able to achieve this as data on race is often not collected. I often also receive emails from community members asking for help in terms of addressing issues related to mental health, related to COVID, and related to other social health issues arising that community members are observing. They ask me for help in pulling together data so they can justify a need to address emerging health issues and social concern, and also propose that what can be done. However, I often have no about the data to provide them, as race-based data is often not available. It is important to collect race-based data. First, to uncover the inequities that exist. Second, to identify the factors that contribute to those inequities. Third, to identify what can be done to address those inequities. And fourth, to identify interventions and policies that can be addressed, that can best address health and social inequities, and how do different populations respond to those interventions, and in the long run, to improve the well-being of all Albertans and ensure health and economic recovery. We do need race-based data. We need data that can support the development of programs and policies. We need to collection strategies that engages racialized communities and contributes positively to well-being. We need to collect race-based data while also situating it relative to other determinants of health, including income. We need culturally sensitive approaches to race-based data collection, analysis, management, and also determination. Race, we know, is a strong determinant of health. As COVID-19 has shown us, collection of race-based data and tackling racial inequities is not only a good thing for racialized populations in Alberta, it is actually a good thing for all of Albertans. Race-based data is also an important means to address racism in health and in social life. It's also an important means to ensure a more healthy and prosperous future for all Albertans. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Salmi. Thank you, Honorable David Shepherd. I'm pleased to join you today to speak to the need for the proposed Anti-Racism Act, Bill 204. When passed into law, this bill will address head-on multi-layered and overlapping constellations of realities demonstrated by numerous research regarding outcomes in domains such as education, healthcare, justice, and the economy, among others. In the field of criminology, such race-based data helps to understand categories of crimes, victimization patterns, trends, and trajectories. For example, Statistics Canada aggregates police-reported data on hate crimes. The data includes motivations such as race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, etc. At the minimum, race-based data provides the capacity to understand the experiences of Canadians with various institutions of society and the underlying micromechanics of the consequences of such interactions. Such data makes planning and interventions possible. The existence of systemic inequality is hardly a contentious point today. We are now in the era of informed and well-calibrated interventions. That is the essence of this gathering. Collection of race-based data is serious business with capacity for life-defining generational impact. Two examples from academia may suffice on the need to pass Bill 204 into law. The share of racialized peoples among full-time faculty is estimated at 21%, although they make up 22% of the Canadian population and 31% of PhD holders. While Black people make up 3.5% of the Canadian population, Black academics in several Canadian universities are less than 1% of full-time faculty. At the U of A, the Black Faculty Collective found that full-time tenure-track Black faculty members were approximately 18 to 21 persons out of 2,058 professors. Again, full-time tenure-track profs. The Black Faculty Collective engaged with the university administration using the statistics collected across various units and faculties. The university administration responded positively with an ongoing Black Excellence cohort hire of 11 persons across 11 faculties. Now, that would not have been possible without demonstrating through statistical data the reality of faculty representation. In 2019, all female full professors at the U of A were given 5.8% salary increment and some lump sum of money based on years of service. The increment was predicated on several years of data and a systematic and rigorous analysis. The purpose was to address the gendered pay gap, which had no basis in the level of productivity or qualification. Each female faculty, regardless of rank, also received $1,500 for, and I quote now, damages to dignity and self-worth, unquote. Addressing such issues is truly about human dignity, worth, market value, and above all, social value as co-equal human beings. Now, not all of these issues can be addressed with cash, but such historicized redress is essential. These are two examples from our province's flagship university. The power and life-changing potential of appropriate data. The law was essential in creating society as we currently know it. The law is essential for making serious changes. To stand in solidarity with marginalized communities implies, in part, working towards implementing measures such as proposed by Honorable David Shepherd's Private Members Bill 204 for the Anti-Racism Act. It can and should be viewed as part of our work of self-reflection as a society, our willingness to hold a mirror to our faces and produce empirically verifiable and incontrovertible evidence of how we're doing regarding channeling the arc of equity and justice. Thank you, Honorable David Shepherd, and all the supporters of this bill. This is a fundamental initiative. This bill will contribute to our collective work for the improvement of society. This bill is important to creating a more inclusive Alberta. And now, I urge you to feel free to direct all your difficult questions to David. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Oriola, and thank you, Dr. Salmi. And indeed, I'm happy to take any questions, difficult or otherwise.
Just a reminder for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function, and for those joining us on the phones to use the *9 function to get into the question queue. I'm just going to put that in the chat in case my audio is cutting out. Put it in the chat, David, in case my audio is.
No problem.
All right, with that, no questions on the line. We will wrap today. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Tens of thousands of Albertans have already provided their idea for how we can build Alberta's future. You can too by going to albertasfuture.ca.